2024 was a year full of incredible opportunities, but not without its challenges. In 2023, I was just a small artist with hopes and dreams, dipping her toes in the artist alley scene. Fast forward to 2024, still a small artist, literally, but has more experience, better understanding, and clearer goals for 2025. Hi friends, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Raisa, aka Kiko in the art community. I am one of the many artists in this community juggling a full-time job and conventions part-time. In this video, I will be sharing to you my 2024 recap, or as others call it, 2024 year in review, and I will be talking about it from a perspective of someone who does this on the side. We'll be talking about my Artist Alley recap for 2024, things that I've probably never mentioned in my vlogs before, revenue comparison between 2023 and 2024, we'll discuss my wins and losses this year, discuss burnout, which is a very common topic, lessons I've learned this year, and 2025 goals. I made this video mainly for myself. I want to be able to go back to this video a year, or 2, or 5 years from now and use the information I'll be sharing here as a reference. I think it's important for growth, and I think it's important to be able to go back to the memories of the previous years. Maybe your curiosity led you to watch this video, so I do hope that you get a value out of it. And if you're an artist looking for a drawing companion, let me be your yapper. So in 2024, my goals, I think, were pretty simple. So my goals were to vend at more cons, regularly update my online shop, and basically make new art. All of that while wanting to maintain healthy and balancing my personal and social life, which one might argue that those are not very attainable. So in 2024, I vended at 5 conventions: MEGACON Orlando in February, WEEBCON in March, Anime Central in May, Anime Magic by end of August, and Rose City Comic Con in early September. I also want to share how I usually structure my PTO when I go to conventions. So cons are usually a 3-day event from Friday to Sunday, which means I've been taking Thursday off. If it's a local con, that will be the day that I come in for setup. If it's an out-of-state convention, then that's the time that I usually fly out, so I have enough time to get to the convention center and set up my table. If I'm out of state, I fly back home on a Monday, but if I'm local, I use that Monday as a day off to recuperate before I have to go back to work. Usually local cons, I typically only spend 3 days of PTO, and for out-of-state cons, it's usually 5 days of PTO. From experience this year, this PTO allows me to have enough time to get to the convention center, have my setup and get settled at a convention, and then fly back home on Monday if it's out of state, rest on Tuesday before going back to work. I think taking a day off after a convention only gives you an okay amount of rest, because typically I use the extra day of PTO for me to unpack everything and reorganize everything at my office here, and also submit any tax forms that I need to send out. I've never really flown the night after the conventions. I just feel like I always need that extra night to rest and then head out the next day. MEGACON is a huge 4-day comic convention in Orlando, Florida that happens usually early February. Fans mainly go there to meet celebrities for photo ops and for autograph signing. Although MEGACON has a big attendee count, it is extremely competitive due to their mega-sized artists and exhibitors. In 2024, I think they roughly had about 800 artists and exhibitors combined, which is an insane amount. So I don't know how 2025 is going to be profitable, but we are going back there in February to find out. Something to also keep in mind for myself is that MEGACON does not have the best target audience for me because it is very comic art leaning. One of the contributing factors why MEGACON did not give me the revenue I was hoping for was because I still carry the small inventory I had from 2023 that I added for 2024 with some few changes, few added items or added merch to my setup, but that's pretty much it. My table placement was also not the best. My table was towards the left rear side of the convention center, just right before the celebrity photo ops and signing. So I feel like definitely a lot of people were walking past our area just to get to the celebrity section, and I just don't think I got enough eyes laid on my art. Ultimately, it's still a great con. I was able to reunite my friends from nursing school, and they actually graciously housed me, so my expenses for this convention was very low. The table cost was $455 for a 6-feet table with 2 extra badges. I had to pay for parking for about $40 a day, which was very expensive, and so it totaled for about $160 for the 4 days that we were there, and my round-trip flight was about $300. The good thing about this convention is they do allow rebooking. Rebooking cost was $475, and I had to use 5 days total of PTO for this convention. Overall, MEGACON placed 3rd place in my overall profits this year. Next con on the list is WEEBCON. WEEBCON is a 3-day anime convention in Grapevine, Texas in the end of March. They are known for their A-list, I think, A-list anime voice actor guests. They also had Japanese celebrities last year, which I think was pretty cool. It is a big shopping con, especially for merch. So this is the only convention I go for as an exhibitor. The table cost was about $600 for an 8-feet table and 2 badges. And I had to spend hotel for this one, which was about $950. I obviously had to fly and had some Uber costs as well. But despite the high upfront costs, I definitely made more money here than in MEGACON because it is an anime convention, and I think that my audience is here in this convention. This was the last time that I was able to be with my parents before they went back home to the Philippines, and I was able to reunite with my sister and our friends.
I have the best goods delivered. It's the cassava cake. It's the goods that Raisa did not expect. So it's the best goods.
In my opinion, this convention still has a lot of growing pains, but WEEBCON has a special place in my heart. Another benefit of this convention for me is that they do allow early rebooking for artists and exhibitors. So I was able to secure that spot for 2025. And I used a total of 4 days of PTO for this convention. I did get sick towards the end of this convention. I really thought I was not going to be able to fly back home, so I was really anxious, but thank goodness that I was still able to, but that was really scary. That is mainly because my body hasn't really fully recovered from the con prepping and attending MEGACON and from working nonstop both from my day job and preparing for WEEBCON. Overall, love WEEBCON, excited to go back. This gave me my 2nd highest profit for the year.
We're going to ACEN!
Anime Central, the best con of the year for me. Need I say more? Anime Central is mid-sized to maybe a large-sized convention. Anime Central, not only you are local, the table cost was only $160 for a 6-feet table, but just 1 badge, but still very, very affordable table cost compared to the other conventions that overly charge their tables. It's the most profitable show for me despite the sticker ban rule that they had, which is something that they're actually changing for 2025. I still had to pay parking, but it was only $16 per day, which was not bad. And this show actually required liability insurance and, of course, a special tax form that I fill out later after the convention and submit to the Department of Revenue. For the liability insurance, so how would you know if you need liability insurance for a convention? Simply, the convention will tell you ahead of time if they do require it. Some cons do partner with specific insurance, kind of like when you are signing up for an apartment lease. The apartment office would have their own like recommended insurance, but you are able to choose whatever insurance you want to purchase for yourself. And so for me, I actually used the Artists, Craftsmen, and Tradesmen Insurance, or the ACT insurance, which was only $50 for the 3 days that I vended at Anime Central. You also have an option to buy like a yearly insurance if you're going to be doing shows all year round. I think that is something that some artists do, but I don't. So I think paying $50 for a 3-day event was good enough for me. I hope to get in again. The vibes were amazing. I was able to meet new friends, and local cons are the best. So after Anime Central in May, I had a 2-month break before Anime Magic, which happened in the end of August. Anime Magic is another local con in Rosemont, Illinois. It is a small 3-day anime convention. I think they have about like 6,000 attendees. At this point, I was really getting overworked from my day job and having to prepare for Anime Magic and Rose City Comic Con because they happened back to back. And I think I was just like pushing it up to the point that my body just couldn't get any more rest. So I did get sick before this convention, and I really had to take 2 days off to make sure that I was able to rest. And it sucks to ration your PTO to make sure that you have enough for the next convention. It is a great small con. It is great for local artists. It is also a small con with too many artist tables and a too early of a start on a Friday. I really think that they should change their Friday start time to a later time, such as 2 p.m. or 4 p.m. instead of 11 a.m. because I think that it's just too early and no one was really there. The fact that most of the events going on in this convention is not even happening at Donald E. Stephens Convention Center. It was happening at Hyatt Hotel. I still think that it was a great con. I was able to hang out with my friend Gian from New York, who is also tabling there. And I am putting Anime Magic as my 4th on my con tier list this year. RCCC is a 3-day comic convention in Portland, Oregon in early September. Like I said earlier, the con happened weekend following Anime Magic weekend, so I was very tired. After Anime Magic, I went back to work, I think for a day or 2, and then I flew the Wednesday before the convention. I had a lot of anxiety leading up to this con. It was my first time getting approved for a corner spot, so I spent so much time deciding my setup 2 weeks before the con, and I was still not successful. So during the setup day, which was also the first day of Rose City Comic Con, I was just trying to figure everything out on the fly, and still somehow was very frustrated and disappointed at myself for not really doing a good job, in my opinion. But I guess that's neither here nor there. This is also a convention that requires liability insurance, so I did the same thing of purchasing a 3-day event insurance from ACT Insurance. And this is also a convention where a temporary business license is required by the city of Portland. It's actually quite simple. RCCC sent an email about the requirements. They gave us instructions to go to pro.portland.gov to apply for a temporary business license, and I think it was only for about $30, which was not a whole lot. The registration process was very simple. It is also the con that I spent the most for the con itself and for my personal decision, because I did fly a day and a half early in advance because I was actually excited to go to Portland and be in the Pacific Northwest area. I was still able to explore, but I also had issues adjusting to the time change. So Chicago, we are in Central Time Zone, and the Pacific Northwest area is the Pacific Time Zone. So in other words, they were 2 hours behind. And every day I go to work, I would usually wake up around 5:30, 6 o'clock. So when I was in Portland, I would wake up at around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and my anxiety would just not want me to go back to sleep. So I just did not have a good time with my sleep schedule there, and sleep is very important to me. I am not someone who sleeps for 2 hours, for 4 hours, and then still be able to work just fine. I need my sleep. Bottom line, the sales were just okay. In the vlog I made about RCCC, I forgot about adding my third check-in bags in my expense list that I posted there, which means that I did not make any profit at this con. I went into this con expecting that would happen, and I went there to experience it myself, and that's what happened. There are definitely things that I could have done to limit my expenses for this convention. I absolutely know that, but it's all part of the learning process. And because of the high expenses that I've had from this con, it unfortunately puts RCCC at the bottom of my con tier list. After Rose City Comic Con, I was so exhausted and started to feel the burnout that this is where it got pretty rocky. In October, I was just feeling a lot of anxiety. I felt like I was not doing enough. I was judging myself for the slow progress. I felt shame, guilt. I was just in a negative headspace, spiraling down. And when I spiraled down, you tend to do things that you normally would not do. I was comparing myself from other artists, knowing full well that everyone is different and that I'm doing this part-time, which also means that I'm not giving all of my energy to my creative process, to the business side of things. I was beating myself up a lot for not being able to produce the art that I want to make, not producing art in general. I felt directionless with my art, and I had this mentality that I just know that I had to make some major changes so I can achieve all of my goals. And that's when I started questioning about why I'm doing all of this. What's the point in doing all of this? Maybe if I just don't do Artist Alley, maybe I will have a completely normal and quiet life. Why did I sign myself up for this? And when you start having those kinds of questions, that's when the realization hits that at that point, I was the one blurring the thin line between art as my passion and art as a business. Before we move on, I wanted to mention about my current work background. I am a peritoneal dialysis nurse in our company, which means that my main job is to train my patients how they can safely perform peritoneal dialysis at home. My job is to also make sure that my patients are healthy while they're on dialysis, to prepare them for a possible kidney transplant if that is the end goal, which 90% of the time that's the goal for my patients if they are not at the end of their life or if they are not seeking transplantation. So I'm a clinician, I'm a case manager, I'm an educator at my job. The good thing about this job is it is an outpatient setting, so I do work in the clinic. The job is 9 to 5, Mondays to Fridays. Occasionally we do work 4 days so that we can have the Friday off. The only really big caveat about this job is I do have 3 hours of commute every day, coming from the suburbs going to Chicago downtown. But I do love working at this job. I do work with an amazing team, amazing nurses, amazing doctors. I have a good relationship with my patients, and it's a job that really fills my cup, and I don't really want to give it up. I'm sharing my work structure so you can have a better idea of what it's like in my job, because I know that every job is different, every job has different demands, every job has different commute times, and every job has a different dynamic, and that all impacts our ability to be able to continue to be creative outside of our jobs. And not just the creative aspect of it, but also the time and the energy that you need to put into preparing for conventions and going to conventions itself, and also preparing after the conventions. So usually I would have like maybe a month or a month and a half to fully prepare for a con. On a surface level, it seems like that's a good amount of time to prepare for a convention, but keep in mind that the 5 days out of the week is for my day job. So in reality, I only have about 3 to 4 weekends, 8 to 12 hours per day to prepare for a convention. And if I am working on a new art or a new merch or continuously preparing for convention stuff, I do work on the weekdays too, before and after work. Majority of the time I do use public transportation to go to and from work, which means that I do have some downtime whenever I'm traveling. So I do use my downtime to my advantage, which means that sometimes I'm relaxing, or sometimes I use that time for creative thinking, and sometimes I do have my iPad with me if I have to draw or sketch a new idea. So I do all of these, right? In 2024, one of my goals is to try out more cons and to test my limits and see how far I can go. My day job is labor intensive, and so is con prepping and doing Artist Alley. And people who do this full time are incredible at what they do, and it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of passion to be able to accomplish all of those things. So let's talk about some losses this year. First one on my list is definitely not having any new art except for one, which was the Ranma half print that I made for Anime Central. Big fan of Ranma half, but not a big fan of the composition of this art because it's just... I'm not gonna say it. Next on my list is my art or my brand is just not where I want it to be and what I want it to be. And I think that this realization is a good thing, which I'll be talking about more in a little bit. Third on my list is not reopening my shop after ACEN, which was after May. One of the reasons why I did not do that was because of an accident that happened in my immediate family that really put me in a negative mental space back in June. And at that time, just the thought of doing more work was not fulfilling for me, so I just didn't reopen my shop after that. And I did say after RCCC that I was going to reopen it, but I still didn't. But I'm going to change that in 2025. Fourth on my L list is getting sick or just being unwell 3 times this year, which is a lot. I am someone that rarely gets sick, and I know that as we age that does change, but 95% of the reason as to why I got sick was because of just plain overworking. So don't do it. And the fifth on my L list this year is just not being active on social media. I'm just not a big social media person. I know that I could do better, but it was just not it for me this year, with the exception of YouTube, which we'll be talking about here in a little bit. So I really had to step away from the drawing board and started becoming more present in the now. The last 3 months made me appreciate myself and my progress even more, because even though I was very hard on myself, I realized that there were definitely some big accomplishments that I did in 2024 that I did not meet in 2023, and that is a huge win. The past 3 months made me learn about the art of slowing down and how to turn patience into a form of creative action. And that's definitely helped shift my mindset for 2025. So let's talk about some wins this year. Let's talk about revenue. In 2024, I hit over 10K in overall revenue. I would say that it's probably more than that. I would say probably 13K. And I currently do not have my Square set up to where it will also include all of the cash revenue I had. It only counted the card transactions for the year. And that 5-figure revenue this year was actually doubled from 2023, which is so nice. And also, it's not a lot compared to others that make more than that, those that do this part-time and do this full-time. But I was very satisfied with this growth, knowing that I did not have any new art to show for, and also limited on the merch that I can offer and just the fandoms that I was just drawing this year did not appeal to some attendees, which is completely fine. Another win this year is I started this YouTube channel. This was the year that I definitely stepped out of my comfort zone and started vlogging. I uploaded 7 long-form videos and gained about more than 370 plus subscribers, which is not a whole lot for other people. I get that, but for me, it is a whole lot because I never really promoted my YouTube to the fullest extent. I was just sharing it on Instagram and basically let the algorithm do its thing. I learned how to edit videos all by myself. I learned how to edit videos because of YouTube University. I am a big proponent of YouTube University. You can learn almost anything here. I learned about the basics of filming, learned a new creative form that is not about just drawing anime, drawing fan art. I learned about different shots, different angles, the flow of the video, editing, color grading, and my favorite part of choosing the perfect music for the mood that I am going for. So I'm really excited for 2025 vlogs. And of course, another win for me is just meeting new art friends and getting to know them as well. Interacting with attendees at conventions are also fun. That's one of the reasons why I continue to do this, is because I do enjoy the community, and I think that this community is very special for me, and this is definitely the community that I want to continue thriving and support other artists as well. So let's get to the last part of this video, which is 2025 goals. And this 2025 goals, I really want to focus on it for being simple, being attainable, and being realistic. As a small artist, I think that I still have a lot of growing pains. There's definitely a lot of things that I want to do in the future. For my creative focus, I really just want to focus on making art based on my strengths and not necessarily continue on experimenting. Experimenting is something that I am notorious on doing, which is part of the reason why I don't get to finish a lot of new pieces, because I just tend to do something that I'm not really well versed at while ignoring my strengths, and I think that's where I am lacking artistically. And of course, that also includes just honing in on my fundamentals, because that is something that learning art as a kid, it's not something that you organically learn about. It is something that you have to intently want to learn to do. I know that if I do focus on my fundamentals, that it'll become easier for me and faster for me to make art in the future. And by focusing on making art based on my strengths, I want to be able to discover my own art niche. The reason is because I'm still learning my creative expression. In the artist alley scene, in my opinion, it's not sustainable to have to make art based on what is currently trending, what is famous right now. While I don't see anything wrong with that and like for other people to do that, because I do the same thing, I think that for my own creative freedom, for me to be able to continue doing this and feed my soul with what makes me happy the most, is to work on art and make fan art that I really love. Even though that anime is not the current trending or famous or hot topic right now, I want to be able to cater to a specific audience and not just being broad or general about the fan art or the fandom that I want to cater to. I will also avoid back-to-back cons. First time I did back-to-back cons in 2023, I got sick. Same thing in 2024. Not going to take a chance and do that again in 2025. Although most of the time it's not really up to us if the convention is far in advance. That also means that I just need to be careful on what cons I'm going to be applying to, and I'm obviously not going to apply to all of the conventions. I honestly think that the 5 cons I did in 2024 were a lot for me, mainly because 2 of them were back to back. So we'll see how 2025 really plays out for me. I already have 4 conventions lined up, which I will share soon. So it'll be interesting how I'm gonna be doing these cons for 2025. Stay tuned, I guess. Next goal for 2025 is to make 2 new art pieces. Last year I completed 1. I think completing 2 major art pieces this year is going to be a good goal. Another thing on my goal list is to have better display setups for different configurations, because every convention is just different. Some conventions are only 6 feet table, some are only 8 feet table, Sometimes you can have a very, very high display, and some conventions have a limit on how high you can have your displays, so something to keep in mind as well. Next on the list is reopening my shop by March, so it's still January, so that should give me enough time. The next on the list is something that's really broad, but I think is really important for me, and that is be unapologetic about my own creative process and putting myself more out there. I think in 2024 I had a good head start putting myself more out there, but no one will really know about me and the brand that I'm trying to show to the world if I don't continue to share my creative journey, perhaps, and just being more visible. But how I'm going to do that, I still have to figure out. For 2025, I also want to be able to have a better tracking of everything, including my inventory and how much profit I'm gaining or not gaining at this convention. After my last 2 conventions, I was also able to conjure an inventory tracker and a sales tracker, or just a revenue tracker, and I will be able to use that fully for 2025. Is it realistic to do conventions on the side while you're working a full-time job? The short answer is yes, but it's not as simple as that. I will say that if you are someone that is considering to do this on the side, I think something to keep in mind is definitely start slow. No one is going to try to rush you into growing a lot in a very short amount of time. While there are people out there that are lucky to be able to do this full time, it is also important to remember that it's okay to take it slow. Slow progress is still progress. Just remember that this is your own path, your own journey to your creative freedom, to your financial freedom, if you want to make art your living and quit your full-time job in the future. For me personally, I'm just nowhere there yet. As someone who go to conventions part-time, I think it's still important for me to recognize that I am privileged enough to have a job that pays for my bills, pays for my upfront costs for Artist Alley, pays for my travel ahead of time, and also have health insurance, pay for my retirement. What are you most looking forward to in 2025, and what are your goals? I'd like to know them in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye!